The girl next door had just been diagnosed with leukemia, but his mom insisted that her socially anxious son go visit her.
Is that serious?
He wanted nothing to do with it. They had lived next to each other for years, but from the day they met, he had never spoken a single word to her. After enough pressure from his mom, Greg finally gave in. Completely unwilling, he forced himself to walk to Rachel's house. When he finally saw her, he didn't offer sympathy. Instead, he came clean about why he was there.
Just let me hang out with you for one day. I can tell my mom we hung out, and then we'll just be out of each other's lives.
Instead of the usual pity everyone gave her, his honesty made Rachel feel strangely relieved. She agreed almost immediately. Greg followed her into her room. He had never been inside a girl's room before. Everything caught his attention, but somehow, he fixated on the weirdest things.
This is a nice pillow. This pillow's a dude, obviously, but it reminds me of this pillow we used to have named Francesca.
He admitted he once had a very sexy pillow. Then things got emotionally complicated. His parents eventually got rid of it. To anyone else, those jokes would have sounded ridiculous, but they landed perfectly with Rachel.
That was good. Thank you.
Greg spent the whole day making her laugh. What started as an obligation turned into the beginning of a real friendship. From that day on, they started seeing each other almost every day. Greg soon realized they had an unusual connection. No matter how terrible his jokes were, Rachel always got them. And somehow, she always had the perfect comeback.
That's exactly what I'm talking about!
In most stories, this is where two people fall in love, but not here. They were simply friends. As they spent more time together, Rachel realized something. The boy who looked like he was saving her was actually the one who needed saving. Greg was a high school senior. To him, his school felt like a world divided into different countries. The athletes, the honors kids, the stoners, everyone belonged somewhere. Greg called himself a citizen of the world. He drifted from group to group. He could chat with anyone, but he never truly belonged anywhere.
Greg, how was your summer?
Summer. What does that word even mean? Like more, some?
Greg was also terrified of the popular girls. In his imagination, they were majestic elk roaming through the forest, and he was nothing more than a tiny chipmunk. At school, Greg only had one real friend, Earl. They had known each other since kindergarten. Earl grew up in a chaotic home, which made him mature far beyond his years. Greg came from a quiet family of intellectuals. They couldn't have been more different, but they shared one obsession: making movies. Over the years, they had made 42 films. Every single one of them was terrible, and they loved every minute of it. Making movies was how they made sense of a world they still didn't understand. Greg thought very little of himself. He believed he was ugly, the kind of ugly that made people want to throw up. He thought everything he said was stupid, that nothing about him mattered. He didn't even want to apply to college.
College is just gonna be non-stop strangers. Some of them even live in your room. It's like you can literally never relax.
Rachel was the one with cancer, but whenever she was with Greg, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was the one who needed help. She decided she was going to change that, with Rachel encouraging him. Greg did something he had never done before. He ate lunch at school. Eating in public, especially around girls, made him incredibly uncomfortable. Then someone tapped him on the shoulder.
You guys mind if I sit with you? Of course not.
Greg tried telling what he thought were funny jokes, but around normal girls, his sense of humor completely fell apart.
Greg, what do you think?
I don't know. Better not get it too close to me, otherwise I might just masturbate onto it.
Ew, Greg, that's just weird and gross.
The second no one was paying attention, Greg slipped away. The image he had spent 8 years building felt completely ruined, even though the attempt was a disaster. Rachel refused to give up. As they spent more time together, Earl naturally became part of the group. The chemistry between them was unexpected. Two awkward outsiders and one well-behaved girl became each other's closest friends. Rachel also became the first real audience for their movies. Surprisingly, even though every film they made was awful, she watched every single one with genuine excitement. Her sincere appreciation made Greg feel understood. For the first time, as the days went by, Rachel's condition didn't improve. The chemotherapy took its toll. Her hair began falling out in clumps. Her face lost its color. She grew weaker every day. But the hardest part wasn't the physical pain. It was how people looked at her.
Everyone comes in here and sees and they're so clearly repulsed.
During those darkest days, Greg's company meant everything. He kept showing up with new jokes and ridiculous stories. Somehow, his nonsense always made her forget the pain, if only for a little while. Rachel was changing Greg too, in her own stubborn way. She pushed him to apply to college.
What if I say no?
I have stage 4 cancer.
Greg filled his application essay with self-deprecating nonsense. Rachel crossed out every negative thing he wrote and rewrote it herself because she refused to back down. Greg finally submitted his applications. Even then, he still had no intention of going to college. Instead, he spent almost all of his time with Rachel. They watched movies that everyone else called terrible, and in each other's company. Time itself seemed to slow down. Then one day, the girl Greg had always compared to an elk came looking for him.
I realized You need to make a film for Rachel.
After hearing about Rachel's illness, she had been trying to think of something she could do. Then she found out Greg made movies. It would be like her favorite thing in the entire world, and it's the most important thing you could do. You have to do it. The idea overwhelmed Greg. Making bad movies with Earl had always been easy, but now he had to make a movie for Rachel, a movie carrying everyone's hopes and expectations. This one couldn't be terrible. For the first time, he found himself paralyzed by creative pressure. He had no idea what to make. With Earl's help, they finally started filming. They interviewed Rachel's mom, her friends, her classmates. One by one, they spoke to the camera and shared their memories of her. As time moved forward, Rachel's condition kept getting worse. The chemotherapy was no longer working. She grew weaker every day. She became quieter. Eventually, she didn't even have the strength to smile. Then, after another painful round of chemotherapy, Rachel made a decision.
I'm probably gonna stop treatment pretty soon.
She didn't want chemo to consume the little time she had left. She wanted to say goodbye to the world on her own terms. Greg's mind went blank. Stopping treatment meant giving up, and giving up meant dying. He couldn't accept that. For the first time, they had a huge fight.
Your mom forced you to hang out with me. Earl forced you to show me your movies. Medicine forced you to make a movie about me. So yeah, what part of this did you actually want to do?
Greg had no answer. He chose to run away. He stormed out of Rachel's house, filled with anger, hurt, and frustration. He went straight to Earl and took it all out on him. He blamed Earl for telling Rachel about their movie. He accused him of betraying their trust. For once, the quiet Earl finally snapped.
Look, nobody gives a shit about you, Greg. Or nobody give a shit.
Whoop his ass.
And then the one girl who do actually care about you, you want to come over here and bitch and whine about some films, yo?
Maybe Earl was right. Rachel was the first person who had truly seen him, and now, the only person who made him feel like he mattered was slipping away. All of his anger, his fear, his resentment was really just selfishness. That fight with Earl left their friendship hanging by a thread. After falling out with both Rachel and Earl, Greg returned to being a lonely citizen of the world. His life quickly fell apart. He had neglected school. During his senior year, his grades collapsed. The college rejected his application. His parents ended up fighting over it. Rachel got even worse and was admitted to the hospital. It felt like every problem in his life arrived all at once. His teacher noticed something was wrong and called him into the office. After hearing everything, the teacher told him something he would never forget.
Even after somebody dies, you still keep learning about it. The life, it can keep unfolding itself to you just as long as you pay attention to it.
At the time, Greg didn't really understand what that meant. He was still trapped in his own despair, but without realizing it, Rachel had already changed him.
Can I ask you something?
Nope.
He was no longer afraid to talk to girls. He could finally interact with them like a normal person. Then, a guy who had never liked Greg started picking a fight. This time, Greg didn't run. He fought back. Of course, he had no idea how to fight. It didn't take long before he was getting beaten up. Then Earl showed up and pulled him out of it. Without saying much, the distance between them disappeared. There was no dramatic apology, no emotional speech. Their friendship simply found its way back, and somehow, it became even stronger than before. Meanwhile, the girl who had suggested making the movie felt guilty for putting Greg through so much, so she asked him to prom.
Is this a pity date?
No, it's not a pity date.
That night, Greg got dressed up in a suit. It was the first school event he had ever attended. His mom couldn't have been happier. She told him college could wait. Tonight, he should just enjoy the dance. He got into a taxi, but instead of heading to prom, he went to the hospital. He quietly opened Rachel's door. She lay silently in bed. Her face was pale. She was so weak, she could barely speak. Greg gently slipped the flower crown onto her wrist. Then he set up a projector. It was finally time to show her the movie. Its world premiere. There were only 2 people in the audience. The movie began. There was no story, no dialogue, not even sound. Greg had given up trying to tell some touching story. He had also given up trying to save Rachel with a movie. Instead, he gathered every feeling from the time they had spent together and reshaped them the only way he knew how. It didn't feel like a movie. It felt like an emotional language that words could never translate. Everything Greg couldn't bring himself to say was hidden inside those images. He never knew whether Rachel truly understood it or even finished watching it. Halfway through, a nurse asked him to leave.
That was the last time I saw Rachel. She went into a coma shortly after that and died about 10 hours later.
Rachel's funeral was held at her house. The living room was packed with people paying their respects. They quietly shared stories about her life. Greg couldn't bring himself to join them. Instead, he slipped outside, climbed through Rachel's window, and entered her room. There, he found a letter she had left for him. Rachel had learned that Greg's college application had been rejected, so she wrote a letter to the admissions office herself. She explained that Greg had fallen behind in school because he chose to stay with a terminally ill friend. She asked them to reconsider consider his application.
I'd also like for you to take some of my pillows. They'll want a good home where they'll be loved.
Greg opened the college guidebook Rachel had given him. Inside, he found an intricate paper sculpture. It showed the three of them, Greg, Earl, and Rachel, sitting on the curb that afternoon, eating popsicles together. He started opening the other books. Many of them had been transformed the same way. Inside each hollowed-out book was a tiny world Rachel had created herself. Then he noticed something he had never seen before. Along the edge of the wallpaper was a tiny drawing of a squirrel, just like Greg's chipmunk. Rachel had gone through her own painful journey of growing up. That's why she could see right through his mask. She understood the loneliness he could never put into words. Those little secrets, hidden all over her room, had always been there. Greg had simply never noticed them. Now, they came rushing toward him like a tide. Only then did he finally understand what his teacher meant. Even after someone is gone, you can keep discovering who they were. You can keep getting to know them. Honoring Rachel's final wish, Greg mailed his college application again. This time, he included the film he had made for her. No one knows what happened to Greg after that. Maybe he kept making terrible movies with Earl. Maybe he stayed a little socially awkward. But one thing was certain. He would never look down on himself the way he used to, because at last, he had found his own worth.